Hello, welcome to Insights, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
I'm sure many of you are still conflicted over the call on citizens by a state government in Nigeria, maybe two states, as a matter of fact, to apply to the police authority for firearms and ownership. We will talk about the point of law on that matter, but more importantly, why state actors, even at subnational level, may choose or may want to choose that route. Elizabeth Omori is also standing by as well. Elizabeth?
Well, it's interesting to know that as this week actually is dedicated to creating awareness on the dangers of illicit drug trafficking, and we will be examining the role of organizations, governments and individuals in tackling this global menace.
Very well then, this is Insight. I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and celebrate
the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Immigration 1897 was a deliberate calculation.
Many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These are applications. There are terms and conditions. That
of course, it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
I'll jump right into it. Self-preservation, or should I say self-defense, is a natural human tendency, especially in the face of danger. The state of insecurity in Nigeria, without doubt, has most people already on edge and worried about their safety, and if not that of themselves, that of their families as well. Unprovoked attacks on communities have continued, and that has now increased what has consistently become a clamor for Nigerians to own guns. But what is the position of the law on gun ownership in the country? Why would a state government, knowing this, openly urge its citizens to apply to the police for gun ownership? Well, there are several sides and angles to this discourse, and that is the subject of my conversation with DIG Abila Joshak, retired, of course, former Deputy Inspector General of Police, Department of Operations. Welcome to Insight.
Thank you for having me.
I have Dr. Kingsley Uzoma also. He's a security expert and analyst. He's chief consultant, Eagles Rescue and Alarm System. And of course, welcome to Dr. Uzoma. Welcome to Insight, of course.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us by Zoom from Lagos is Monde Ubani, lawyer and public affairs analyst, former chairman Ikeja branch of the NBA and second vice president of the NBA. Welcome to Insight. How is Lagos today?
Fine. I greet all of you that are in NTA there, and then the guests that are inside. Lagos is very fine. It's not raining.
Wonderful, good news. It's been cloudy here for days. As a matter of fact, it's been a wet week. It was a wet weekend for us here in Abuja. I guess it would be nice to see some sun after all. But let's begin the conversation, and I'll start with DIG. The Nigerian Constitution, which of course is the supreme law of the land, is silent on the right to the possession of guns or firearms. Yet the laws of the Federation do not, and this is my opinion, having done some research, they do not expressly prohibit the possession of firearms by private citizens. Let's talk about the Firearms Act and firearms regulation. These laws, of course, make provisions for and regulate the possession of and dealing with firearms and ammunition in Nigeria. They also define what firearms and ammunition are and talk about the president's prerogative and that of the Inspector General of Police to grant licenses to persons who wish to possess or own firearms. So indeed, possession of firearms in Nigeria is possible, but only in accordance with the provisions of the law regulating firearms. Is that correct, DIG?
That is correct.
Would you like to clarify that or how it could happen?
Well, over the years,
there were times when individuals will apply to the Inspector General of Police, and in those days to the Commissioner of Police. In fact, some of the arms, like the one for gaming, were also being issued by the chairman of the various local government. But because of insecurity and discovery of the fact that most of these arms go into the wrong hands, and they are used in tormenting citizens, not just tormenting them, in committing all kinds of crime like killing, murder, and like also robbery. And so that has ceased. And I know that a few years back, the government and through the Inspector General of Police made it very clear that anybody who intends to have any kind of gun must apply to the President, Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I know also that it will go through the National Security Advisor, who will look at that and process that. For now, I do not think that the police or any organization have the right to issue whatever firearms, whether for gaming or not, because that has been found to have been misused and misplaced.
So the firearms that we see with some vigilante groups and some security outfits are licensed by the Inspector General of Police, and so otherwise these groups wouldn't have them in the first place. If that is correct.
Yes, it is not possible for anybody, either a governor or any other person outside, those who will look at the demand from such an individual or group and process that through the National Security Advisor. And I think the National Security Advisor would also want to assess that, and for the purpose of clarity, it is Mr. President that grant the license for the bearing of firearms.
Dr. Ozoma, talk to me a bit about the somewhat, I would not, do I describe it as a lacuna now? I mean, the Constitution not guaranteeing the right to possession of firearms, and yet not explicit on the citizens or private citizens not having that same right. I mean, there seems to be somewhat of a lacuna or something missing somewhere.
Okay, in line with social contracts, of which there was a departure between the state of nature and the modern state, it becomes the responsibility of the state to guarantee security of citizenry and properties.
Very true.
In that regard, yes. So the police has the mandate of protection of lives and properties. So that being the case, individuals don't have the right to bear arms. But given as the state progresses and we are having insecurity, and it seems that maybe the number of police are not sufficient enough to protect the citizenry, there is this call to have a support, and that's where you have the vigilante, the civilian JTF being part, but still under the control or supervisions of the police. So should they have a license for gun whatsoever? It's not being given to the individual, but rather the security outfits has been regulated by the states. So when you have them in terms of state, so it goes they came into being by the establishment of the enabling law of the state as recognized by the federal government. So when they apply quote and unquote is being given, for instance, the Omoteco as a body, not individual persons. And that being the case, their classification of guns, firearms they should have, and it doesn't go beyond double barrel and single barrel guns. But these days we also see them possessing a pump action. But such entity cannot possess license like what you have special machine guns or the AK-47.
Barrister Bani, I'll need for you to clear this up a bit for us. The 1999 Constitution guarantees every citizen the right to life under sections 33 subsections 1, and in subsection 2A gives private citizens the authority to use reasonable force to defend him or herself from unlawful violence or for the defense of property. This is at the center of the right to self-defense. So is self-defense via gun ownership legally out of place or far-reached even within the ambit of the Firearm Act?
Yeah, it's an intelligent question. If the Constitution has guaranteed your right, and then also give you the right to defend yourself in case of any assault on your life, whatever you will use for that defense must be something that is legally also acceptable or provided for under the law. If the Firearms Act says you cannot possess any gun except for gaming, and of course for that gaming you must have license, it will be wrong for you now to illegally acquire a gun and then rely on that subsection you just mentioned now in order to commit whatever you want to do by way of self-defense, and say, look, you were defending yourself. That was why you are using that particular gun. The issue is, was that gun allowed under any law for you to be used in the first place? Even to engage in this self-defense. I think that is the issue. The issue of owning a gun is not a constitutional right. It's not a right guaranteed under the Constitution. As a doctor has spoken about the issue of protection of lives and property and welfare, that clearly is the primary responsibility of the state. The state does that and ensure that the environment is very conducive for everyone to go about his or her normal business without any molestation, without any anarchy, because it was this anarchy thing that made us to form a government. And government owed that responsibility to make sure that the environment is very safe. So if there are issues that are now cropping up in terms of insecurity, and the same government that ought to protect lives and property is now throwing up their arms, in the air and say, oh, go ahead and acquire gun, without the legal framework being established and all that, then it's going to create a lot of confusion. And we know the issue of having gun in this country, my brother. We have to look at it, very holistically. We have to look at it, the issue of philosophy sociology have to come in. The issue of the people's way of life have to come in. Even in America, where it's being used, there is a strict regulation that is going on, I'm sure. You're aware of the law.
Yes, the latest amendment that the president, I think he should have signed it by now if he hasn't already.
Beautiful. They are trying.
It's a landmark decision, bipartisan decision reached by.
Beautiful, sir.
Yes.
Beautiful. So if you have a sane country where people eat 3 square meal a day, have electricity 24/7, and then have all the basic infrastructure, still killing one another at slightest provocation, you can imagine what will happen here, where there is frustration. It's like we're living in hell here, and then you now arm people with guns. I can assure you that half of the population of the country, would have been fell down by usage of gun here. You allow it, everyone to possess gun.
Mr. Bani, you just you just said something and it just struck a chord. Sometimes when I'm driving, I have this small, this kind of vehicle that they call 2K vehicle. That's what I drive in Abuja, is a 2K vehicle. So sometimes I'm pushing it along the expressway by Kubo Abuja, and then these big trucks. Back in the day, it used to be these big trucks, they don't give you way, and I'm driving my small 2K, and then this big truck just comes and it wants to almost push me. It has happened to me once or twice. Just shove you off the road. That happens with a vehicle that is not even a firearm, and somebody with a bigger vehicle, just so because they have a larger size, shove you off the road for just what now happens if somebody now comes, and even if government says, okay, yes, I give you this small pistol, and then somebody comes with a chakabula. And then is that not the same scenario? Just
and that is actually what will play out. I can assure you that many lives will be lost. There was a time somebody was pushing for this. I don't know whether you remember. A member of the House last year, I think he is one of those returnees who eventually managed to find himself in the House. And it was pushing for an amendment for a new law that will allow Nigerians to carry gun. It was during that time everyone was complaining about a state of insecurity. A lot of people have mooted the idea. The point is that it is clearly a failure, on our own part in terms of governance. If we are now saying everyone begin to possess the gun, the basic responsibility the government ought to do is to ensure that lives and properties are protected. Now, what have they done so far that has now led to the extent now people now recommending, let everyone carry gun? So I don't think it is this ripe now for Nigerians to be advocating for everyone to carry gun, because I know that the consequences will be more dangerous than the problem we want to solve.
You know, let me ask you this too. I mean, since I have you there, what does the law say about committing an offense to prevent an offense or a crime from happening? Of course, this is different from double jeopardy, I should say. So in the event that in self-defense you also do commit an offense, what option of legal defense are you likely to have? Can you maybe, you know what, can you create two scenarios for us that may vary depending on the situation?
Yeah, the issue is that in the law court, the court do not reach decision most time, based on sentiment. It is on the facts that are presented, the circumstances. Because anyone that is alleged to have committed a crime, the prosecution has this duty to present the facts leading to that crime commission. So when you allege that somebody has committed a crime, maybe he's in his house, and then maybe he just come back from work and discover that the neighbor is sleeping with the wife, and then he wants to probably raise his hand against his wife, and the man now want to hit him as a man, and so maybe he has knife or gun or whatever, he now use it to kill that intruder. One, you are sleeping with his wife. Secondly, you also want to harm him in the process of trying to correct his wife, and then he has the right now probably to take away her life. So when you present this kind of complex evidence before the court will have to look at it from beginning. Who committed offense? What manner of the self-defense? Was the self-defense you were probably engaged on, commensurate to the harm that was actually, ought to be, done to you, which you anticipated that man who was in the house wanted to do to you. Now, in self-defense, you have to save your life because self-preservation is the first law. You now have to kill him in order to preserve your life and all that. So it is this complex evidence and facts that the court will have to look at before arriving at a very, very sound position that will meet out the justice of the matter. So there are many instances again, maybe also going on the road, an armed robber, stops you and then want to, take away your car, and in the process, there is gone. So if you have any gun, even though it's illegal, and you shoot that armed robber at that point in time, it becomes a more complex issue. So you also go to court. The court may not charge you for murder. They may probably
even though that your firearm is illegal.
Yes.
Yeah, even if they may not be. Now I'm saying that you have killed, but it may not be murder now. It may not go for murder. It may be manslaughter. For murder means life. I mean, death. When there is this, is the facts of the case, my brother, that will determine all that. The court will look at all the facts. You are going on your way, an armed robber with gun, probably armed, want to kill you and also take away your car. But in the process, you have a gun that is unlicensed, and they now use it to kill this armed robber. So will it be good for the state now to charge you for murder, which if you are convicted, you will be sentenced to death, or probably to ask you to be charged for manslaughter, which gives you maybe 7 or 8 years imprisonment because you have committed a crime. So these are issues that the court will examine before they arrive. It is the circumstances of the case, the facts of the case, actually, that will make the court to reach a decision that will make you know whether you have gone off the border, what you have committed is something that is so grievous and all that.
Yeah. Dr. Uzoma, would you like to jump in there before I come to DIG?
Yes, in line with situation ethics, his assertions are very correct because the situation is what determines the positions of the court. And wherefore you have, just like the pronouncement of the governor, trying to give the citizenry the order to approach the commissioner of police for gun license. In the other way around is an admission that there is actually insecurity that seems to be beyond the control of the state, and at the same time trying to charge the state security agencies to do more, because you don't expect the commissioner of police to issue license. Rather, on the other hand, he's telling the security agencies to sit up. Yes.
So you think it's somewhat of a chess, like a game of chess?
Absolutely.
DIG retired, of course. I'd like to come to you, and our panel has thrown up the issue of I'm not indicting the states now or saying they've not done let's call it spade a spade. The states have not done enough. And some persons would argue, and I would like to play the devil's advocate here, that states calling on their citizens to apply for gun ownership are choosing to adjudicate their core responsibility of protecting their citizens. You know, these persons argue that by taxing people to rise and defend themselves with arms, that it will create further chaos. Barrister Ubani spoke to this earlier. Is this something you concur with? DIG retired?
Yes, well, of course, that must be made out of some disturbing situation or some helplessness, because it is translated to mean that those of them that are responsible for ensuring safety of the people and the property in that community or in that state have failed. So the man that is calling for citizens in that country to bear arms and to defend themselves is a statement to say that there isn't much that has been done by those who are supposed to ensure safety and guarantee safety of the people and their properties. But you can't not just translate that if any citizen dare go to get arms without license and bring that out and begin to shoot and kill a lot of people, he will account for that. But in self-defense, if your action is commensurate with the punishment, if it is to ensure that you save your life and save the life of others, like the last speaker said,
yes,
the lawyer, then it means that the law will look at that and see what you've done. I think that the governor that said the people in
the leaders of Zamfara actually
should bear arms.
No, should apply to the police.
Apply to the police. Well, they are not going to get that from the police.
Okay.
But should apply to the appropriate authority. I think he's saying that out of the fact that that is the level that they've gone. And so it is a wake-up call for the security agencies and the military that are on ground.
Okay.
To look at that and address it quickly so as to ensure that the people don't go on self-help. If you go on self-help, they're going to get all kinds of implement and begin to attack people, and the wrong people might be attacked.
We'll come back to this issue of self-help and self-defense, or I mean whatever we choose to call it, private defense. But then, DIG retired, I would like to take you up on something you just said.
Yes.
I mean, of course, we've registered the fact that it's likely to cause more chaos, but are there not specific classifications for persons who can actually apply for firearm guns ownership in Nigeria? And on what grounds can someone like, say me, be refused gun ownership in Nigeria if I choose to apply to the Inspector General of Police?
As I speak, I don't think that I left in 2019.
Yes.
And I've been keeping pace of development, because once a police, always a policeman.
Yes.
I do not think that the authority or the power that is embedded in the Nigerian police and the IG is at liberty to approve firearms. And while we're there in 2018, what the IG did was to mop up. We were mopping up arms in the hands of people. In fact, people were encouraged to surrender their arms for a fee. Surrender your arms for a fee, and a lot of people did. So what
you're saying until you left,
the General Police.
Yes, until you left, the police was not issuing licenses for gun ownership, aside for groups.
No, we were mopping. The police were mopping. They were not issuing license. Even the one for games that have been issued by the local government chairman, because there's another kind of arms for gaming and for hunting that the chairman of any local government would have given. That wasn't there. And so for now, all I know, anybody who apply, the General Police will refer that to Mr. President. And I also know that the National Security Advisor has a role to play and advise Mr. President or whatever. and that's where it is. Unless it's just been changed, that is how it is.
Barrister Uzoma, let me take you back to some of the scenarios that we've created. Sorry, Dr. Uzoma, Barrister Ubani helped us to create certain scenarios that we have actually talked about here. But then in talking about how states might be seemingly adjudicating their core responsibility of protecting the citizenry to the citizens and taxing them to take up arms and defend themselves. You also described it as a game of chess. What are the likely scenarios? Now we know the players. What are the likely outcomes or game hands that we'll see playing out?
So the likely outcome is this: if peradventure those who already possess arms illegally, they now have some sort of moral burden to utilize it against an intruder at any provocations. So what that triggers is, in the society, is like drifting back into what they call a state of nihilism, which we departed from initially from the state of nature. So life is becoming more admission that life is becoming more nasty, brutish, and beyond bearing firearms, there are other maybe some sort of
the state you just described, is that the state where the United States is? Because the United States do not agree with you there that their Second Amendment is what you've just described.
The society evolves, you keep on strengthening, you meet challenges, so your recent challenge will determine, and the dynamics of the society will determine the kind of law how you are to amend or implement. But given our own peculiarities and situations, don't forget that yes, we are fighting insecurity, which actually rose to its peak far back 2011, before maybe some sort of state of emergency were granted in some states in the northeast. Now again, we are the build-up of election, and if you listen to the last conversation, the DIG made reference of 2018 precisely while in office, where the police did their mop-up arms. So we would have also asked the DIG if maybe the quantity, the volume of these arms that were mopped up, and how the police are able to secure them to make sure that they don't also go into the wrong hands. Because we see at the build-up of election, during campaigning, electioneering, we still see people bear some degree of unlicensed
very true
guns following political aspirants. You see them at the local government level and what have you. And don't also forget the cultists that we have from one campus to another, and the militants. They also bear guns, and maybe the police from their surveillance has some of this information. Are we also saying that some of these cultists or the militants have this gun license? And the answer obviously is no. So what is the police and other security agencies also doing in making sure that they recover these arms? And the last research I did, the Arms Prohibition Act of the state dates back to 2004. So, and by that 2004, for you to possess these firearms for gaming and sporting, there are some rigorous scrutiny you must undergo before the commissioner of police, that has to do with health check, your mental balance, your identity in the society, and what have you.
It will seem like I and Dr. Uzoma, we flipped roles now, because DIG, if you also listen like I did, he's just asked you a direct question. I don't know if you would like to respond to that. He's asked if there was perhaps a structure in place until you left in 2018 that monitored this mop-up that the police did to ensure that some of these guns retrieved and mopped up do not go into the hands of those shouldn't have them in the first place. He did reference the election as an example of where such arms could go to, and also reference Curtis as well. If I do recall, sometime early this year there was a complaint about certain amount of ammunition and guns and ammunition, firearms and ammunition missing from the police armory. I mean, this is true. I mean, it's just giving some context to what we're talking about here.
But I would like to to overflow this issue and then maybe speak for the Nigerian police. But the much I know, and I know what does happen. A lot of people believe that the Nigerian police can carry their arms and go and sell. Forgetting that a lot of police officers and other security agencies that are deployed on ground for operation have had to be hacked down by criminals and their arms taken. Arms that are secured, arms that are mopped up and sent into the armory. Sometimes ago, you saw how the armorer, under the command of the Inspector General of Police, through the Commissioners of Police, some of them that are also very bad and not just bad, some were burnt. A lot of it were burnt. And so it's wrong to say that the police could bring out those arms and give them up. But we have bad eggs in every society. It is possible that some officers will do what we call a war, will escape and then abandon their duties and go with them. There are also those who also must have also sold, and if that is found, is one of the punishment in this in the Nigerian police, that you are not only dismissed but you are sent into prison. And so there are very strong laws and rules that are set in place to ensure that these things don't go to the right hands and wrong hands. But like I told you, there are many ways that people every day bring in arms, and because of the porosity of the border, and because of several other interactions with the society and with other countries, it is very, very clear and possible, and it's on records that a lot of arms come through our borders that, if we want to mention, they're all there.
Yes.
And so I think that the government and the Nigerian police should do everything possible to ensure that these borders are protected. But as you protect those ones you identify, the porosity is so much that you are not likely to have the security and the personnel that will actually block those. And that's why we're asking for the communities that live at the borders to be very nationalistic and also to have that zeal that they will be the people to point out, because they see, they watch, but they do not talk.
So, I mean, because you've just raised the critical issue of proliferation of small and light weapons, and I mean, in Nigeria, is that enough to curb the spread and drastically reduce the numbers like was seen in Nigeria? I mean, just so, we engage the border communities and ask them to provide information. What more can we do to reduce proliferation in small and light weapons in Nigeria? That's part of the problem.
Yeah, but if you have to succeed, whatever you want to put on ground, if you are bringing in the cameras and the drones and what have you, you need to seek also the cooperation of the border communities, because the border communities kept thinking, in most cases when you get them, we've interacted with them, they say, after all, the government does not know us, the government does not bring social amenities. In some border towns in this country, some of the people enjoyed from the border town of the another country, because they do not have good schools, they do not have clean water and the rest, and so their loyalty, their devotion and dedication to the government of the day where they belong is not there. And so they find an opportunity of exploiting. They encourage those who smuggle goods, items like food. They also encourage them in terms of arms, in terms of vehicles. They said that, and they would tell you that our forefathers were here, and that was what they were doing to survive. And so until you were able to change the border community and provide the necessity and make them look at what is happening as a very dangerous trend that leads to death and what have you, and then they will be able to do something.
Fantastic. I hear you. Barrister Ubani, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry to have kept you this long, but of course I know you have listened in to the conversation, and you get a sense of where Dr. Uzoma and DIG retired coming from. And even though states, I mean, especially the ones that have called on their citizens, and now I'm taking our discourse back to the core issue that we're discussing here. I mean, even though these states are torn and conflicted between the need to protect their citizens as contained in sections 14 to, the subset B of that in the 1999 constitution, and how best to respond within the legal framework. I mean, you've outlined that earlier. I say this knowing there are underlying principles, of course, to self-defense and private defense, I mean, whatever way you choose to describe it. But at what point can the failure of states inability of states to adequately provide protection for lives and property justify some provisos for self-defense, or would that be a function of legislation in Nigeria?
I don't know at what point that inability can be justified or taken over by the citizens themselves. Unless we're saying that there's no more government. As long as government does exist, as long as government does exist, government cannot abdicate. Government cannot abdicate from the very core responsibility of governance, which is what we have said is the protection of lives and property and the welfare, provision of welfare services to the state, to the citizens. These are the basic responsibility of governance. Now, if the leadership that is there is not doing well, the people owe a responsibility in performing their civic responsibility by voting out that government that is clearly unable to provide those things that I consider the core of governance. That is the issue. Then, having said that, the issue of security also involves everyone. All of us have to be very conscious of our environment. Make sure that we also assist the security agencies in reporting any person or any of these moves we consider to be very criminal. We report it to them for investigation, especially where there is a clear relationship that is cordial between the security agents and the people. The people must also provide vital information, because police no be spirit, they are human beings too. So they require those adequate information that can help. Now, there is a complete failure at times, that allows certain things to linger on in this nation. When we are talking, you see the idea you mentioned, we have a porous border. And over years, as I speak to you, my brother, there has been no conscious effort on the part of government to ensure that our borders are well policed and protected. People are coming in at will and exiting. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world except in Nigeria. When you are going to Britain, you and I know, at the airport, they take statistics, they take data of when you are coming in, when you are leaving. And of course, if you don't leave within the time you have already given them, they know. The system will be monitoring you. At the end, one day you'll be caught out in the street and deported. But here is a country where people from Niger all over are coming into the country without any hindrance. And they come with all these weapons we are talking about, both light and medium, and they bring them in. Because if the police have been mopping up, how come we have even more arms and ammunition, in the country with which people commit all manner of crime? All over. There's no state in Nigeria today that is safe, except everyone for himself, God follow for. So it is important that these things are things we should openly discuss, and then government should take responsibility by making sure that these things are done. Protect our border. Don't allow this thing. I don't know whether for any reason, I don't know what reason why they allow citizens of other countries to be coming into the country. I don't know. And it's ongoing for many years. I don't know whether for political reasons, I don't know whether for voting reasons, or whatever it is, something has to be done about our border. The porousness of the border contributes to the state of insecurity in Nigeria. I tell you this, and this is a national television, and I'm very happy I have this opportunity under NTA. If we want to solve security problem in this country, hear my mouth, sir. I'm saying it here, and I won't in any way renege on this. Let's empower the local government properly. Let there be a proper administration at the local government level in terms of all the budgetary allocation, and if they have enough funds, every local government is secured. Nigeria will be secured. If I secure my own local government, I'm from Ikuano, and the local government chairman, everyone that enters there is under my jurisdiction. I should be able to know who comes in, who's a visitor, and man my own local government. The man in Kano, man his own local government. The man in the Zamfara, man if all the local government in the country is properly funded and policed, Nigeria will be safe. But the moment we have abandoned that local government level and over centralized our architecture, our security architecture, everything must come from Abuja, everything must end with Abuja. That's why we're having the state of insecurity.
I hear you, Barrister.
The people in government know it, but they will not allow it. They just want the insecurity to continue because they're making so much money out of the system. But if we agree with ourselves, we can solve this problem without all those analysts every day coming to television telling us everything about the issue of insecurity. We can solve it. Let every local government be protected.
I do agree with you there, Barrister Ubani. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you've said it. You've hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that empowering the local government at that level, I mean, would go a long way in resolving and curbing crime and criminality in Nigeria. I mean, gentlemen, we are out of time. We spent the greater part of 35-40 minutes, on this discussion. But very quickly before we go, I would like to have your final words, Dr. Uzoma, very quickly.
Okay, well, my advice is for the state security agencies to sit up, because we have more problems with the elections drawing near national elections. The police really need to do mop up arms and enhance security of lives and property.
DIG retired, I would have loved to take you up on the issue of community policing and accountability and the transparency of the activities of some of these vigilante groups that we've seen operating in parts of the country. Some of them have ethnic connotations, and we do not know who they account to and how the activities are being regulated. But of course, we'll leave this for another conversation. Very quickly before you go, there's a final word we would like for you to just say real quick before we wrap up. Yeah.
Yes, no doubt. Most of the governors in the various states have the responsibility of security and safety. It's one of the security and welfare. And I urge that the commissioners of police in the various states must be co-opted, must be brought in while trying to plan. Whatever kind of security outfit within the environment you want to set them up, you have to tinker with the commissioner of police and the DPOs. They will give you very good advice wherein you make deployment, and nobody will come into your community and get out without being identified. No crime will be committed without finding out who did. If we do that, we're likely to succeed very well.
I thank you so much, gentlemen. I would like to thank all three of you for your profound thoughts on this conversation today. I mean, this is quite a delicate matter. It's an ongoing conversation, and so hopefully we will be able from time to time to call on you and have your take on this issue. Barrister Ubani in Lagos, I hope the rains have not started while we were having this conversation. I hope it's still bright and sunny in Lagos.
You didn't give me opportunity for my own last statement. So,
please go ahead. Please go ahead, real quick.
So, I think that the electorate should be awake. Anyone that is coming for governance that will not have a robust prescription on how to solve our security situation should not be given the opportunity.
Fantastic. I hear you loud and clear. Barrister Monday Ubani, one-time chairman, Ikeja branch of the NBA and past second vice president of the NBA. I'd like to thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kingsley Uzoma, the security expert and analyst, public affairs analyst as well. I'd like to thank you as well for joining us in this conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
DIG Abila Josiak, retired, former Deputy Inspector General of Police Department of Operations. I would like to also thank you so much for coming on Insight.
Thank you for bringing me here.
And that's it for now. Up next is Elizabeth Omori for the rest of the program.
The 2021 World Drug Report released by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime shows that around 275 million people used drugs worldwide last year, while over 36 million people suffered from drug use disorders. The report further revealed that in the last 24 years, cannabis potency had increased by as much as 4 times in parts of the world, even as the percentage of adolescents who perceived the drug as harmful fell by as much as 40%. Despite evidence that cannabis use is associated with a variety of health and other harms, especially among regular long-term users. Low perception of drug use risks has been linked to higher rates of drug use, and findings highlight the need to close the gap between perception and reality to educate young people and safeguard public health. The question is, how do we close the gaps and protect public health? My guest, Special Advisor to the Chairman, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Otumba Lanre Ikpimosho, will deal on the issue before us. Mr. Ikpimosho, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nigerians.
All right, UNODC's 2021 report on drug use is quite disturbing, considering the group mostly affected, the youth. What exactly are your thoughts?
I agree with you absolutely. It's disturbing, it's frightening. The strength of a nation is found in its youth. So a nation is as weak as its youth. Unfortunately, our youth are the most creative you can find anywhere in the world. I'll give you an example. The boys in the creek, Goodluck Jonathan, Mr. President, removed them, and within 6 months, some of them were flying aircrafts. Boys in the creek. That tells you how resourceful our youth could be. I went somewhere to watch football in commemoration of this today. And we say yesterday, it's amazing the talent of our youth. And we need to wake up like yesterday to catch up, not just to catch up, but we have to be ahead of the people we are planning for. So that is what took this government into looking at what is it that is making the youth attractive to those who recruit them for crimes. Banditry, kidnapping, armed robbery, assassination, all these are centered upon the use of drugs. There is no cell that you dissolve, no camp that you dissolve that you will not find the issue of drugs in it. Which means if we want to be at peace as a nation, if we want our security as a nation, if we want our healthy nation with less stress and demand on our very weak health infrastructure, we should pay attention to this issue of drug abuse.
All right, let me quickly take you on the issue of cannabis. It was highlighted in that report, and looks like nations do not really have control over it. Why is this so, including Nigeria?
You know, it's behavioral. It's a behavioral. For as long as there is demand, there will be a supplier.
There's always a chain.
As you know, as you are mounting pressure for it, we may be attacking the suppliers, but then the few who are able to list it will now be paid more. This is the issue. That's why the management decided on based on the recommendation of National Drug Control Master Plan, which was designed to meet the challenges, that the two-pronged approach must be held in equal seriousness. That the approach is don't demand. Drug is definitely not an option. If you are weak in a particular subject, you now start taking drugs because you want the subject to be out of your mind. No. You will weigh the other good areas. You are bad in mathematics, yeah? So you now win every other thing that is in you. parents need to go very close to their children. The most important responsibility of a father and a mother is parenting. Unfortunately, there are no schools for parenting. There's just one or two courses in psychology and all that. Which you now, if your mother did it wrongly, you most likely will be doing it wrongly, because that's what you know. You can't give more than you have. We need to pay attention to this.
Okay. All right. If you look across the various components of the media on a daily basis, drug traffickers are arrested, and with new ideas to move their products. They conceal them in diapers, cigarette packs, bedspreads, and so many other funny ways. What exactly are we not doing to nip this in the bud? It looks like the laws are not biting.
Yes, one major problem we have is the sentencing does not reach the problem on the ground. The sentencing does not read the calamities that come with drugs. The judiciary of our country has improved tremendously over the past 10 years in the area of drugs. We must work together. The court does not have its own country to live in if we allow drugs to ravage us. And the children of the judiciary are children of this country. They have no other country to run to. We must view this from the same lens. Drug is not something you hide under your roof and you pretend that it's not there. There are parents who don't sleep at night when you are snoring in your house. So many like that. And unfortunately, people think that it will be ascribed to you or your son takes drugs, so they don't come out early enough. They give them all sorts of things to drink. It does not work. There's nothing that comes before a drug addict. Nothing. There's nothing you cannot do to get the next one. So we must take it as serious as we took COVID or even more. Please check your domestic servants that you brought into a home and serve your family. You find out that some of these, they are in favor with your children, so loved. I don't know what type of love they have for your children, that they will be supplying them with drugs and picking extra money from your house. You need to pay attention. Everything that is wrong with your house, as a big man, this little children, they are aware. The guy that washes your car, the guy that cuts the lawn, they are aware that it's not as rosy for you. It's only you that's a stranger in your house. You need to pay attention. So that is our aim. And we are collaborating by the grace of God with relevant internal and external agencies. UNODC, a European Union, they've committed so much in this course. It's amazing how they could be so committed. Before we ask, they are with us. Right as I feel with you, they are with us. Then we have our local partners, particularly the parents. The parents are the first and the last, because this whole thing is about each home. In most cases, the mother gets to know first, but she doesn't want trouble in the house, so everybody is keeping it away from the father, who probably has a way out of it. Reconcile your family. Let them know that one person on drug in the house can make the house very, very unpeaceful. Number one. Number two, the schools. There are schools that don't pay attention to this issue of drugs. They kill the stories. Some schools have lost like an average of 5 students in a year. I know universities where this have happened, and everybody is pretending that it's not true. We want the authorities that supervise universities to pay attention to this. The federal government can only do the best. Without your collaboration, we cannot succeed.
Interesting. Otumba Larry Ikpemosho, Special Advisor to the Chairman, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, we want to thank you so much for enlightening us on this segment.
Thank you so much.
Amina Mohammed,
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
Agencies and stakeholders to proactively tackle these challenges. We know
women in most countries of the world constitute about 50% of registered voters. Williams, reporting for Dateline 360.
In Jos, Caleb Gochin, Deadline 360.
Najaati Tijani.
360. Chidi Okrafo.
For Deadline 360.
In Lagos, Michael Olaleye.
Reporting for Deadline 360.
I am Omosola Omojola. Thanks for tuning in to Deadline 360.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Stay away from drugs. We'll see you next week.